Hello, wild ones. This is Cole Adams, and I do a lot of tutorials. I try to do some tutorials on living a creative life. And today we're in part 2 of, we started with planning a painting. Now we're going to work on our underpainting and the textures of our painting. And then the next video, I'm going to be painting it. So here's where we are right now. It's an eagle's nest with eggs and an eagle's body. I really like this layout, but I actually really want to switch the eagle to over here. So this underdrawing, this eagle needs to shift and be over this way because I want it to read right to left. So I kind of loaded everything up on the right hand side of the painting, and I think I want to switch it to here. And then all of this part of the painting, actually all of this part of the painting, is going to be a bunch of texture. And on my note plan, I have some questions and a river plan, which I'm also going to do a video on. But my big questions still are, where's the light source? What textures am I going to create? How will it identify me personally as a painter and make it my own? And then I have jelly plate sticks, question mark. And I wrote that down in kind of a quick way during the planning phase, and I just knew that was a question I had, is how do I make stick texture? For those of you who don't know, a jelly plate, mine is very dirty, and I don't mind that, is this kind of thick, squidgy material, and it's super fun to work with. I like working with it with a deli plate, so I'm going to use a bunch of texture tools to create some stick texture. And I was just going to go through quickly what those texture tools are. One of my favorites is an old comb. I'm sorry, like that, but I use it as a stamp and get that square. I like the square and the circles in the square, the grid of circles. Just to stay on the circle front. This is one of my favorite homemade stamps. This is just fun foam, and these are corn pads for your feet if you have bunions on your feet. But I love the circle donut shape. So I use a lot of circles, and then I have two more circular things. This, I think, is something that you get pet hair off of a couch with. But what I use it for is to get that circle detail, and it was a whopping 25 cents. Anytime I go to a yard sale or a thrift shop, I'm always looking for texture-y items, and I never know what's going to be good and what isn't. This is another circular pattern. This is called Bedazzled Flexible Wall Covering. So this is a wallpaper sample, and after years of printing with it, it looks like this, and it was also 25 cents. So I would really encourage you to find tools that are not necessarily commercially made, because you can get them for much cheaper in general. I do have a couple of feathers in my studio, so I'm thinking of printing with these feathers for the eagle's body. I think I ordered a lamp that came in here, but these strong vertical lines that are irregular, I think will make a beautiful print and very sticky texture. This is another piece of just packaging that I saved. I also love a hand carved stamp. So this is a stamp I carved quite a few years ago out of safety cut, and I think that feels nesty, sticky to me. I literally just open up both my stencil drawer and my stamp drawer, and I go, what might work? I think organic, like rounded shapes, and I think I just think squares don't work. This is just crosshatch. This is an old licky mat from the dogs, and I just cut it up and got the texture I wanted out of it. And this is a stamp that I also bought from another artist who was getting rid of them, and I just felt like that texture might look good in sticks. They're definitely sticks, not, I don't want them to look realistic. And then finally, I did pull out my stencils just to show you too. This is a piece of dollar store container that I just cut up. Actually, I think my friend just cut it up, and I use that as a stencil. I probably won't use this stencil for this project, but this is parts of a game board. Like if you're punching out the game pieces, this is what's left over from that. I love that texture. This is Punchinella. This is what, go in front of the white, is left over after sequins is made. I think I found this at Sky Blue online. But most everything I use is kind of a form of garbage when I think about it. But I love it. The other thing I have used in the past, this is a piece of embroidery cloth that's plastic, and I think it's meant for when kids want to start learning embroidery, but I love using this texture too. So I will use all of those things to pull paint off the surface and make some really textured sticks. Okay, I am all set up over here with my jelly plate in the center. Get to brown, I might have to add some blues to this. I have some deli paper that has some previous texture on it. And then I have some blank deli paper, and I have everything over here on a thick foam pad. So when I go to clean off my roller, I save that paint. I am definitely one of those people that likes to, I think I'm gonna put the pink away because I'm thinking nest-ish colors, but still very bright textures around this side. And then what I'm using to apply the paint is a speedball roller. You can also use kind of a thicker one of these, or I think you could probably use a brush too, nice texture. But what I want is I want all my texture at hand, I want my paint at hand, and I want lots of paper at hand, because I want to work very quickly. So the one that makes me most excited is the gold. I have a little bit of blue left on here, but that's going to be okay. So let's put some gold down, and maybe a little white with that gold. See how that looks. Always the way to make things higher key is to add white. So I'm going to mix, and mixing versus laying down color, if you kind of use circular motion to mix, that works really well. And I am just going to use this whole jelly plate. I'm just lifting it up and off as I'm doing that to get some of the paint off. And that's a really light creamy color that works for the first layer. So I'm going to go in with some textures. This is that wallpaper. Go through the middle here. I think of that as a really neat bark texture. And then I can use my deli paper over here to pull off some of that paint. This is that piece of garbage I found that has like such a fun texture as well. Think of like sticks as having, I mean, it's definitely not a stick, it's just a imaginary stick that has these really big textures. When I pull out my comb, the cone, if you go straight, gives you a very straight texture, but what I love to do with it is do these like starts and stops. And you can even go back from that first line to get a little bit more varied texture. So I just really like working with that. It adds such weirdness to it. And that's how I like weirdness. Okay, what else? Let's try my big round circles and parts. Okay. And let's maybe do some X's in there too. Not a very sticky texture, but definitely something. Pretty much I just want something that's really highly interesting to me. And then I'm gonna finally go in with my little pad and pull the edges so they kind of soften. And any place I didn't get a lot of texture, just going with this. Okay. Now I'm gonna pull this paint off because it's still wet to a dry and free piece of deli paper. I'm gonna go with my shiny side down. And because I have a little bit, this deli paper is a little too small for this, so I'm gonna pull the rest of it onto this black piece, just so you can see the difference. Some of the blue off. Still have more blue to go. This is what that piece looks like. It's really pretty light and bright, but I know I'm gonna need those colors. This time I'm gonna go in, maybe I could get a ghost off of this. Let's see. This is just, I was cleaning all my tools onto. Definitely got a little bit more off. A little bit of that blue off. That's what that one came off as. Now let's do a little bit more vibrant, but also adding white. Maybe a little tiny bit of this metallic black, but definitely less. Yellow, ooh, that's a lot of yellow. Friend, some white, and just a touch of black. There we go. This time I'm going to try to mix it in a much smaller, should probably not do this dead center. So this is going to stay much more yellow than that brownish color. That's okay, because this is going to go over, I'm going to do this one over the top of the brownish layer. Now I was picking up and putting down my tool. Now I'm cleaning off some of the paint. So I'm going back in and pulling a little bit more of the paint off because I can tell I've got too much paint on there. But instead of just putting it on newsprint, I'm keeping the paint by creating another piece of deli paper to work from. I'm going to pull out the first pull we made, and I know the textures in there were this texture. I'm going to go up at a diagonal, and all I'm doing is kind of just wiggling and being really not too thinking on my approach. I use some circles in that piece. I'm gonna go into and just pull out something totally different to go in between those woobles. And how I go in between is I just hold my tool the way I want it to print. This is how you can take a kind of obvious tool that is maybe purchased and use it in a way that you can't really identify where it came from. Make sure you clean that paint off of this tool. I definitely don't clean my stamps enough, but I get it somewhat clean. Is there anything else? Oh, let's take this tool. So this is one of those color shaping tools, and we're just gonna go in with some lines, and I'm going over here and getting that paint off of my tool and creating more texture over on this other piece of paper. For me, paint is never lost if I can help it. It is by far the most expensive thing in my studio, and I don't want to waste it. And I want to reuse it. I just want to like use every bit of it if I can. Okay, I think we're getting dry. So let's throw this down. I'm gonna go find that edge piece again. Maybe. Definitely have a thick layer on this. I'm going to let this part dry. And I'm actually going to flip this one over and try to get a secondary pull off of it. So I'm just massaging them together. The only thing you have to do is pull it apart before that paint sets. That's kind of cool. I'll take it. This should be dry now. So this time I'm just going to go in with gold, because all this yellow texture is what's going to be on top of the second paint layer. And I'm going to put some more texture, but I really want to change the size. This is all really little texture. I'm going to go with a much bigger texture piece. Let's see if this is dry or not. I might have gone in a little too quickly, but we'll see. Okay, I'm gonna let this dry in place, and I'm just gonna continue to work in this color palette and with these tools to just create depth and layered papers over time. I haven't fallen in love with any of the papers so far, but I definitely like where they're headed. And there's not that much depth to them, and the high key color palette might be a bad choice because it might not give me enough texture. I might have to go in and make an even a little bit darker brown to get to where I want to go. So I'm going to continue to work this and see where we head up. But from that little session, I have at least started 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pieces of paper, which should be absolutely plenty for the nest. So instead of creating even more starts, I'm going to just keep adding color to these 10 pages and try to get to a place where I really feel like I've got something beautiful and something very textural to work with to make some stick shapes out of. Hello, painters. So I got some results for my Gelli plate printing. That was one of those end pieces. I just kept layering and texturing, and since I'm going high key, I'm not going to get anything too dark, but I kind of wanted to go into that like more neutrally brown. So there's a lot of texture when you look up close, but I'm really happy to where I got with these. This has quite a bit of gold in it, and I have a feeling that running through the nest area is going to feel really good to me. That's more paper. This one's very pink, but I feel like having kind of mixing and matching, and most of these are two-sided, so I'll decide which section I want to go for. I love when you glue it down, you can kind of see both layers of the paper, so you get kind of double the texture. I would say most of this paper is kind of mid-tone, and I'll use actual paint to darken and lighten sections. This is kind of interesting because I didn't quite mix up all the colors I was working with here. I really like that piece. It probably won't go into the nest, but I have it to work with. So that's what I worked on. The next step is to tear some of these out into stick shapes and start building my nest structure on my backer board. So I will work on that next.